there is a kind of pain that doesn't make sense. You look at your life, you think about your childhood, you examine your relationships, and still, the intensity feels older than your experiences. Why do you fear abandonment when no one has left? Why do you feel guilty even when you have done nothing wrong? Why does responsibility sit on your shoulders like something ancient? It can feel as if your body remembers something your mind does not. Psychology offers one explanation. Carl Jung spoke about the collective unconscious, inherited archetypal patterns that shape how we perceive the world. These patterns are not personal memories, but emotional blueprints. Spiritual traditions describe something similar through karma, not punishment, not destiny, but unfinished emotional energy. Astrology, at its deepest symbolic level, can be understood the same way, not as prediction, but as archetype, a mirror of psychological patterns that feel older than this lifetime. What if the trauma you cannot remember is not random? What if it reflects the archetype you carry? Some people carry what we could call the abandonment imprint. If you resonate with Cancer, Pisces, or Libra energy, relationships may feel especially intense. You may overanalyze changes in tone. You may feel anxious when someone becomes distant. Even small signs of disconnection can trigger deep fear. Psychology offers one explanation. Carl Jung spoke about the collective unconscious, inherited archetypal patterns that shape how we perceive the world. These patterns are not personal memories, but emotional blueprints. Spiritual traditions describe something similar through karma, not punishment, not destiny, but unfinished emotional energy. Astrology, at its deepest symbolic level, can be understood the same way, not as prediction, but as archetype, a mirror of psychological patterns that feel older than this lifetime. What if the trauma you cannot remember is not random? What if it reflects the archetype you carry? Some people carry what we could call the abandonment imprint. If you resonate with Cancer, Pisces, or Libra energy, relationships may feel especially intense. You may overanalyze changes in tone. You may feel anxious when someone becomes distant. Even small signs of disconnection can trigger deep fear. This does not mean you are weak. It suggests your nervous system is wired for emotional sensitivity. The fear of being left may feel ancient because security feels fragile. The lesson here is not dependence. It is inner stability. Learning that connection is strongest when it is not driven by fear. Others carry the power and identity imprint. If you resonate with Scorpio, Aries, or Leo energy, betrayal, disrespect, or invisibility may feel intolerable. You might react strongly to being overlooked. Trust may not come easily. Vulnerability can feel risky. This imprint often revolves around power, losing it, defending it, or needing to prove it. The intensity feels older than your current life because identity feels tied to survival. The lesson here is not control. It is self-mastery. When strength becomes internal rather than reactive, the cycle begins to shift. Some people carry the burden and responsibility imprint. If you resonate with Capricorn, Virgo, or Taurus energy, you may feel older than your age. Rest can feel undeserved. Productivity may feel tied to self-worth. You might struggle to relax without guilt. There can be a quiet belief that you must earn love through effort. That stability depends entirely on you. This imprint feels ancient because responsibility feels necessary for survival. The lesson here is permission to exist without constant proving. Worth that does not depend on achievement. And then there is the freedom and belonging imprint. If you resonate with Aquarius, Sagittarius, or Gemini energy, you may feel like an outsider. Even in familiar spaces, there can be a subtle sense of distance. You may crave freedom intensely. Commitment can sometimes feel restrictive. There is often a search for meaning, for truth, for somewhere that finally feels like home. This imprint can feel ancient because exile, emotional or physical, shapes identity. The lesson here is integration, freedom that exists within, not only in movement. Here is the deeper truth. Past life trauma does not have to mean literal reincarnation. It can describe emotional momentum, patterns that were never fully resolved. Why do certain fears feel disproportionate? Why do some reactions surprise even you? Why does your pain sometimes feel older than your memories? Because patterns repeat until they are understood. The Zodiac, in this framework, is not telling you what will happen. It is describing how you tend to experience what happens. And once you become aware of the pattern, you are no longer unconsciously living it. The abandonment imprint can become emotional intelligence. The power imprint can become grounded confidence. The burden imprint can become disciplined strength without self-punishment. The freedom imprint can become visionary clarity without isolation. The wound and the gift are closely connected. If you feel trauma you cannot remember, consider this. You may not be broken. You may be carrying an old pattern that is ready to be transformed. Not because fate decided it, not because your sign trapped you, but because awareness gives you choice. And the moment you choose differently, the pattern that once felt ancient begins to lose its hold. What once felt like inherited pain becomes conscious growth. And what you thought was unexplained trauma becomes the beginning of self-understanding.